Hi, this is James, and I'm here with the Oracle Outlook for the week starting October the 16th, 2017. This week, I'm going to be doing a Kipper card reading because I've had a few people over the course of the past week ask me to do some more Kipper-related content. So I figured this would be a nice way to start off that Kipper-related content. So the deck that's going to be assisting me for this week's reading is, once again, the Fin de Siècle Kipper cards. They are by Ciro Marchetti, and they are published by US Game Systems Incorporated. So I have the deck on hand. I'm going to go ahead and shuffle the cards. And as I do for every weekly reading that I do, the intention and the question is always, what do we need to know for the week ahead? Feeling that's good, I'm going to go ahead and cut the deck. Now spread the cards out. And I'm going to be working with a line of 5, so I'm pulling 5 cards from the fan that are getting my attention. All right, I have the 5 cards selected, so I'm going to take the remainder of the deck up and put it aside. All right, so I have the 5 cards laid out. And when I work with a line of 5, I always start with the middle card. For me, the middle card is what the focus is for the week ahead, or a central issue to the week. So looking at the card we have, so here we have the coffin card. And the reason why I made that face and said, oh, okay, is because I literally just had this card in my mind as I was setting up the room for doing this reading. So the first thing I want to say is, because I was thinking about doing this reading and because of what's going on in my own personal life, I saw this card. So I will explain what this personally means to me as I'm filming this. I'm filming this on a Friday. It is actually Friday the 13th, right? So it's October the 13th. Tomorrow, which is the 14th, I am going to pay my respects for someone who a few weeks ago made her transition, and her memorial is tomorrow. So I was thinking about that. That was in my mind, and I saw this card. So I'm saying that to say this. For someone watching this video, you may be going through a similar experience. You may have lost someone who is no longer here on this side of the world, in this physical world, so you may have been going through a loss, or you may be doing something that's going to be a tribute, an honor, or a memorial to someone who has recently passed on. So that's based on my own experience. So I know, like, we are all, in spiritual truth, we are all connected. So if one person's going through a situation, there may be others who are going through a similar situation. So that's the other thing. Coffin typically can represent something that is ending, something that is reaching its natural conclusion. It can also represent needing to finalize something, because I tend to look at this as finalizing things. So somebody may be needing to focus on completing something, letting a situation come to its end, its natural state of conclusion, or needing to finalize something. Those are all aspects of coffin. Now, for me, other things that I think about with coffin, I think about maybe somebody's experiencing some form of limitation or restriction. So there's that. Oh, yes. And so the other things that came to me with coffin as I was thinking about it beforehand is that maybe putting an issue to rest or to bed, because I tend to look at coffin as a sleeping place. So that could be something having to do with actual rest, or, a bed. So there's something about that. And there's also, too, sometimes for me, coffin, I think of like things like unconscious experiences, where something may be coming up that we were unconsciously aware of, and it's coming up, and with that it's coming up so we can do some work around that. I tend to look at this, going with the rest and the bed analogy with coffin, I tend to look at this as a dreams card. So dreams come from the unconscious state, and we receive that kind of information because our defenses are down, because we're unconscious. So there could be something of that nature, either something having to do with being unconscious, and I tend to look at this unconsciously aware of something that's going on, and something may be sparking a sense of like becoming aware of that, or that we may be receiving some guidance through dreams that's going to be very important this week. It's going to center on that because, again, playing on the center issue or central placement in the line this week. So again, coughing could represent something ending, something coming to its natural state of conclusion, needing to finalize something. For me personally, it's talking about me paying my respects to my friend who has transitioned, or in that sense, even something else being memorialized. So those are all my things about coffin. So now, just like in Lenormand, Kipper for me is best read when we look at the other cards surrounding it because they're going to inform us more about this central issue. So looking at the cards from the far left, we have Judication. In between Judication and Coffin, we have Despair. Then over on the other side of Coffin, we have Child. And then rounding out the line, we have Thoughts. Okay. So what I usually do is I usually go one step out. So I'm looking at the cards that are immediately flanking the Coffin card. So on the left, we have Despair. In traditional Kipper cards, this is known as grief and adversity, right? So somebody may be going through a time of grief, and that would make sense with what I said about losing someone and the idea of that person being memorialized or being honored in a way. So there's that aspect of it. So there could be some actual grief that we are going through, and it may be in connection to someone who has made their transition, right? So there's that. This card can also come up when we are just in a space where we are just being challenged, and situations that we are experiencing are very adverse, playing on the word adversity. If you look at the image on the card, there's a man who is sitting on a crate with his hand holding a hat, and his other hand holding his head up. So facing a sense, and maybe you're going through a situation and it just seems like it just doesn't seem to be working out. Well, the nice thing about Coffin coming after this card, it could be saying to that state, that experience is coming to an end, right? If we read the pair of Despair and Coffin, it represents despair comes to an end. So there could be that. It could also be too this limitation or restriction. If we turn it the other way around, this limitation or restriction that we've been experiencing has created a sense of despair, feeling like it's just never going to turn around, right? I'm looking at the image, and behind the man there's a not hiring sign in the window. So it could be like maybe somebody who is looking for work. Going with that, the idea here could be if we let Coffin be the center card, maybe somebody has faced termination with a job or employment, and now they're on the job hunt. And if they've been on the job hunt for a period of time, they may be getting to the place where they're starting to have despair, about the situation. It could be saying too, in that particular case for that particular person, then this combination is validating your experience, but it could also be suggesting that your despair is going to be coming to an end. So I see that with despair. Now moving to the other side, we have child. Child could represent a literal child, just like in Lenormand. I tend to look at the literal aspects of Kipper. So here we have a situation that may be dealing with a child. So it could be somebody is feeling a sense of despair, or they're experiencing an adverse situation that may be involving a child, right? So if it's not the literal, I tend to look at the child card as representing something new, something beginning, something in its beginning stages, something that's starting up. So with that, if we pair despair and child, then we could have, the beginning stages of an adverse situation, right? Or if we go with the idea of playing on this aspect of it, child can also represent something small, right? So it could be, I'm seeing this as a possibility of, an adverse situation, kind of being reduced in size. It's being minimized. That's the way I'm seeing it in my head. So it could be something that is either just beginning, or if you've been in it for a while, then it could be you could be seeing a reduction in it. And that would make sense with coffin also being about something coming to its natural state of completion, something that's ending. But usually child for me can represent something new, something beginning, something starting up. It could also be too, if we go with the idea of reading the 3 cards in a row, if despair is the first card, then we have an adverse situation, right? Then comes coffin. There's either going to be a break or it's going to come to an end, right? And here's the thing. If something's coming to an end, it sets the stage for something new to begin, and that's where child comes in. You know, the wonderful thing about coffin coming first is that something's coming to an end and then child coming next to it. That sets the stage or creates a space for something new to begin, right? So there's that with child. Now, going one step out, on the far left we have judication. So judication is a card that can represent a decision needing to be made, right? And so I'm looking at the image on the card, and so here we have 2 people who are standing before a judge, right? So if for somebody, this could be, you know, a legal matter, a legal situation. It reminds me what I talked about in last week's tarot reading about the idea of a legal matter, because I was seeing in that reading the idea of like maybe somebody being served a summons or a subpoena, you know, something of that nature, or needing to investigate something through legal channels or legal means. For that person, judication would make sense then, because it's starting off the line. So it could be saying too, like we've been embroiled in this legal matter, and now we're at the point in the legal matter where a decision may be about to be made, or a decision has been made, because you're standing before the judge. If it's not about a legal situation, then it could just be saying too, like, we are going to be in a situation where we are going to need to make some kind of decision. With this card, I always tend to think of it as like you're weighing the facts, you know, you're weighing the pros and cons about it. You're being asked to be like a judge and look at the situation from all possible sides and angles. And here's the thing, you can only make the decision based on whatever evidence is presented to you, right? And so with that, it tends to be not very personal. You know, the judge has to be an impersonal party, right? It makes the decision. It's not about taking sides or, you know, allowing personalities to kind of sway how things go. It's always based on the evidence being presented. So it's kind of like almost in a way like you have to be logical, rational, analytical, just the facts type of approach with that. But it could also be too needing to make a decision that's in the best interest of both parties. I'm looking at the card again, seeing 2 people. So what's in the best and highest good for everyone concerned, right? So if other people are weighing in, or they are a factor in this decision that needs to be made, what's going to be in the best and highest good for everyone involved, right? So I'm seeing that. It could also be too, if we pair judication with despair, the despair card, then here we have, it could be the possibility of a decision being rendered or made that leads to some sort of grief, some sort of adversity, or it sets the stage that helps create this adverse situation, right? It could also be too, like whatever, if this was a legal matter, let's say, whatever that is, it's caused a lot of grief and adversity, right? And so that could be coming to an end. That would be make sense too with coffin, remember, being the focus card here. It could be like the end of a legal matter, or, you know, based on the decision being made, it comes to an end. So that is judication. On the other end, this is very interesting. So here we have thoughts. And so typically in traditional Kipper cards, this is known as his thoughts, right? So basically this card just represents thinking about something. So it could be, you know, maybe if we pair judication and thoughts, it could be thinking about a legal matter, thinking about a decision needing to be made, and with that it could be a sense of preoccupation with this decision that needs to be made, meaning like we're thinking about it over and over and over again, or it's just constantly on our mind, this need to make a decision of some kind, right? It could even be too, if we go with judication coming before thoughts as a pairing, it could be the decision's been made and we're reflecting on the decision. You know, we're giving it some thought or consideration. I tend to look at this card sometimes as a challenge is, you know, being consumed with it in your mind. You're preoccupied with it, thinking about it. You're over analyzing it, and that may be an aspect of it. It could be a decision needs to be made, and maybe someone is over analyzing it. All right, so there's that. But now for me, there's a personal meaning to this card, so I'm going to throw this out there as well. For me, this thought cards can mean someone who has an artistic talent, because I tend to see this card representative of my brother, who is an actual visual artist. He's an actual painter, and the man on the card is a painter as well. So this could actually be somebody who is either a painter specifically, or someone who is creative just by nature, right? So there's that. And it could be too, talking about, I'm looking at the image, and maybe giving a project, a creative project, some thought. If we take coffin into consideration, there could be, you know, the completion of an artistic project, the completion of a painting, going specifically with that. It could also be too, oh, here's the other thing that I just thought of, and this again is for me personally, so I'm having a personal moment on camera, is that the friend of mine who made her transition was also an artist. She was also a painter. Right? So again, that's a personal aspect. See what I'm doing is I'm talking about the cards and I'm relating it to what I'm personally going through. So as I'm doing that, I encourage you to do the same thing, right? As I'm talking about the cards, ask yourself what parts of what it is that I'm talking about resonate with you and in what aspect of your life, right? And that's how you can make this reading more personal to you, right? So that just thought about, you know, my friend being an artist just popped into my head too. So it could also be too, like we are completing something, like I said, or that there is a person who is of a creative nature. So it could be a writer, artist, something creative, and they are focusing on completing a project because there's a deadline attached to it. So that's what I'm seeing. So there may be some sort of grief and adversity about completing something within the deadline or getting it done by the deadline. And then maybe that's where the adjudication comes in, because maybe there's a way of needing to make some important decisions so that project can get completed by its deadline. So I'm seeing that. And on that note, I will end and wrap up this week's Oracle Outlook. So I'm Jameson Mitchell, and as I close, I'd like to thank you for sharing space here with me for this week's reading, and I look forward to sharing the same space with you again in our next video reading together. So until then, I'm hoping that you have a wonderful day, and I'm hoping that you have a wonderful week. Take care.